Van Dyke, the legendary Dick Van Dyke, is 90 years old, and he's still as spry, at least, as somebody who's 50, 60, maybe even in their 40s, doing a dance for, of all people, Bernie Sanders. A lot of celebrities have come out for Hillary, but Dick Van Dyke has come out for Bernie Sanders, and we'll ask him why. First of all, Dick Van Dyke, you look pretty good on your feet there. You still got it.
I still got it, yeah. Can't get a job, but I'm ready.
Well, I got to tell you, first of all, I remember as a kid growing up and watching you. I'd lie down with my dad. He's exactly your age, 90 years old. He'd be smoking his Kent cigarettes, which you used to advertise on your show. So I'm wondering whether maybe cigarettes aren't that bad after all. But
you know, we only did that Kent commercial once.
Okay, you did the Kent commercial once, but the point is that you are a legend, and what you says matter to a whole generation, to several generations of Americans. So why is it that you're for Bernie Sanders right now?
Yes. Well, when I first heard his speech, I said, he is saying exactly what I've been watching happen for the last 4 decades. Everything he said is the truth because I saw it happen. It's you know, there's a tenuous balance between capitalism and democracy. They're really kind of oil and water, and sometimes if it gets out of balance, things get sticky. And right after the 50s and 60s, which were good democratic kinds of years, you know, there were no economic crashes back then because regulations were in place. And for the first time, the American people hit the streets and passed the Civil Rights Act. And the government wouldn't do it. It was a great time. But there was a kind of a reaction to that. The corporate world didn't take that well. Are you familiar with the Lewis Powell Memorandum?
The Lewis Powell? No, I'm not.
Well, he was a gentleman who ended up on the Supreme Court. He wrote a big memorandum to the national chambers of commerce, and he said, we have to break up the solidarity which is manifesting itself among the American people. We have to break it up in our own defense. And he said we have to set them one against the other. They've done a pretty good job of doing it too. And,
but I got to tell you, Dick, I remember the 60s. I'm old enough to remember the 60s, and JFK, who I'm sure you supported as a good Democrat, was taking policies that were sort of at odds with what Bernie Sanders wants to do. He wants to raise taxes very high. JFK brought taxes down. JFK was also involved in a number of deregulation, not regulation. So I'm just wondering, Bernie certainly sees some things that are not good about America. He saw the financial bailout. He didn't like it. I didn't like it either. But his solutions, I'm wondering if his solutions are what would really be good for America right now.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, during the Reagan administration is when they loosened up the regulations, and the banks and Wall Street went bananas, and the bubble burst, and millions of Americans lost everything they had. Nobody went to prison. As a matter of fact, they're richer now than they were. He's talking about that 1%, which is, you know, I hear oligarchy. I really do. I think if the voices like Bernie are silenced, my grandkids are going to be living in a flat-out totalitarian oligarchy.
But some people worry, Dick, about living in an all-out socialist democracy. And after all, your show and a lot of other things that capitalism supports probably wouldn't exist had it not been for the antithesis of socialism, which is capitalism. Hasn't capitalism been good for America?
Well, yeah, but that balance has to be kept. Bernie is not talking about robbing anybody. It's very familiar with Roosevelt's
Well,
New
some people
Deal.
would say a 90% tax rate is robbing people.
He's not going to, has never mentioned that. I think the last time he even mentioned the number, it was 52 as an absolute top. And I think that balances out pretty good.
Yeah, I think he was harkening back to the days of the 1950s when we had a top rate, which of course nobody paid because everybody who was at that top rate was rich enough to be able to avoid it. I just have to ask you, Dick, though, about one person who's big in the news today and sort of taken all the headlines, and that's Muhammad Ali, because your wonderful show, the Dick Van Dyke Show, was taking place right in the midst of Muhammad Ali's climb to fame as a boxer. What are your memories of that extraordinary period?
Well, I can remember when he was Cassius. A lot of people were put off by his arrogance and his ego and everything. And it finally dawned on us all that he was putting us on the whole time. He made himself famous, and he turned out to be a wonderful human being, great humanitarian. When he lit the torch in, what was it, 96 at the Olympics, I think everybody in the world teared up. It was such a beautiful sight, wasn't it?
It certainly was. I mean, again, nobody united all the people in the world better than Muhammad Ali. He brought the entire world
and maybe
together.
Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong as well. Good comparison. Yeah. Dick Van Dyke, great to see you, my friend. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks. We'll see you. Well, protesters accused